with something small, something Ellie Hartley almost overlooked. A note. 4 words. Left on her kitchen counter between a half-empty coffee mug and her laptop. I saw you sleep. No envelope. No name. No context. Ellie frowned, running her fingers over the paper. Her mind went to the usual suspects. A prank, maybe. One of her friends messing with her. Rachel? Possibly. She had a dark sense of humor. But this didn't feel like Rachel's style. And anyway, how would she get into Ellie's apartment? That night she brushed it off. Told herself it was nothing. Probably some note she'd scribbled herself while half asleep and forgotten. Sleepwalking maybe. Stress. Lack of sleep. Still, she locked her doors extra tight. Put a chair under the doorknob. Closed the bathroom door even though she never did. She left the lights on. Just in case. Ellie lived alone in a cozy third-floor walk-up in an aging red brick building on the quiet edge of town. She worked remotely as a freelance editor, spending most of her days inside with noise-canceling headphones and 2 cats who seemed too lazy to care about anything but their food schedule. Her world was predictable. Calm. Secure. Until it wasn't. The second note came 2 days later. She found it inside her pillowcase. You talked in your sleep. I listened. That one made her stomach turn. She sat on the edge of the bed for a long time, staring at the note. This wasn't just some prank. Whoever it was, they'd been inside her bedroom. While she slept. She hadn't locked the bedroom door. She never did. Why would she? Her hands trembled as she checked her apartment, room by room. She pulled open closet doors, checked under the bed, opened every drawer and cabinet. Nothing. Not even a hair out of place. There were no signs of forced entry. The door was still deadbolt from the inside. The windows latched. No broken glass. No scratches on the doorframe. Impossible. But the note was real. She could feel it in her hand. Read it over and over again like it might change meaning on the 5th or 6th pass. I listened. Listened to what? Ellie didn't know what disturbed her more. The idea that someone had been inside while she slept, or the thought that they could be still inside. Hiding. Watching. The police were polite but useless. Any evidence of a break-in? They asked. No. Did you see anyone suspicious? No. Could it be someone you know? I don't think so. A shrug. Keep your doors locked. If anything else happens, let us know. She didn't sleep that night. She told Rachel over the phone. Her friend tried to be comforting. That's terrifying, Elle. But it's probably nothing. Some freak on the internet pulling pranks, or you have a neighbor who thinks it's funny. I don't think this is a prank, Ratch. He was in my room. Rachel paused. Do you have a security system? No, just locks. Get cameras. Front door, bedroom, whatever you can afford. Yeah, Ellie muttered. I will. She ordered a set of motion-triggered indoor cameras the next morning. Set them up the moment they arrived. One in the living room, one pointed at the front door, one in the kitchen, and, most importantly, one facing her bed. She left all the lights on again that night, and slept for maybe 3 hours. Her dreams were strange. She was standing in the hallway of her childhood home. All the doors were closed, but there was a sound, a soft, haunting humming, coming from behind one of them. A lullaby. The kind that seems familiar but you can't quite place. She opened the door and there was nothing inside. Just a note. Floating in the air. I liked last night's song. She jolted awake. Heart racing. The camera's red light blinked steadily in the corner. She scrambled out of bed and checked the footage. Hours of stillness. A few restless tosses and turns. But no one else. She rewound again. Watched herself sleeping. At 3:27 a.m. she mumbled something. Then turned over. She played it again. Slower. Louder. She could just make it out. A melody. Humming. The lullaby from her dream. She covered her mouth. She hadn't imagined it. She'd sung in her sleep. The third note came that morning. Inside the refrigerator. Blue pajamas suit you. I liked last night's song. She dropped it. Sank to the floor. Everything was wrong. She called Rachel again. This time, sobbing. Ratch, he's been watching me. He's inside. Wait, what do you mean inside? Did you see someone? No. But he knows. He knows I was wearing blue. He heard me hum something from a dream. And I found the note in the fridge. The fridge, Rachel. I would have heard it open. Jesus. I checked the footage. No one came in. He's not outside. He's in here somewhere. I don't know how. Rachel was silent for a moment. Then, you need to leave. I don't want to run away. You're not running. You're regrouping. Stay with me. We'll figure this out. Ellie didn't leave. Something about the thought of running, of abandoning her space, her reality, felt like surrender. Instead, she set up more cameras. Every room, every hallway. She taped the doors and windows with thin strips of paper, so even a breeze would tear them. She stopped sleeping. Started drinking too much coffee. Checked the footage every morning. Every hour. Nothing. Days passed. The notes stopped. Until they didn't. The fourth note was inside the cat's food bag. I like the gray one. She watches me too. Ellie froze. Ash, her gray tabby, was staring into the hallway. Not moving. Just watching. She ripped her apartment apart that night. Again. This time she opened the attic crawl space. She'd never actually been inside it. Just a little square above the hallway, never thought much of it. She used a broomstick to pop it open. Dust fell. She climbed up on a chair, pulled herself up with trembling arms. It was pitch black. She turned on her phone flashlight and swept it across the space. Empty. Except for one thing. A small, old-fashioned tape recorder. She stared, reached out and grabbed it, wiped off the dust. There was a cassette already inside. Labeled in neat block letters, Ellie, Night 1. Back on solid ground, she stared at it for a long time. And pressed play. At first static. Then her own voice. Sleeping. Murmuring. Then another voice. Mel. Barely audible. Whispering with her. Mimicking. I liked your song. Click. She dropped it. Her hands shook. Mouth dry. Someone had been recording her. Someone had been living up there. She called Rachel again. I found a recorder. In the attic. He's been listening for weeks. Maybe longer. Ellie, this is beyond a stalker. This is obsession. You need to go to the cops. They didn't believe me last time. They'll think I planted it myself. Then stay with me. You need to be somewhere safe. Ellie hesitated. Then packed a bag. As she locked the door behind her, she glanced up at the attic. The hatch was closed again. But this time, something was scratched into the wood. It carved with something sharp. She climbed on the chair one last time and brought her flashlight up. 5 words. You're leaving me alone? That night at Rachel's apartment, Ellie didn't sleep at all. She laid on the couch, eyes open, watching the shadows move across the ceiling. Every creak of the building made her flinch. She wasn't just afraid he'd follow her. She was afraid he already had. In the morning, she found a note slid under Rachel's front door. On the same type of paper. Same handwriting. We were just starting to connect. Ellie stared at the note beneath Rachel's door, her breath caught halfway between a gasp and a scream. We were just starting to connect. Same handwriting. Same paper. As if he'd followed her here. Or worse, as if he'd been here the whole time. Rachel was in the kitchen, humming tunelessly as she made coffee, unaware of the message that had crept into her safe space overnight. Ellie knelt down, fingertips brushing the note like it might burn her. She didn't pick it up. She just whispered, "How?" "Hey," Rachel called. "Want coffee?" Ellie slowly stood. "Yeah, sure." She took the note with her, folding it tightly and sliding it into her pocket. She didn't want Rachel to see. Not yet. Not until she had something concrete. Some proof this wasn't just paranoia spiraling out of control. Rachel handed her a mug. Rough night? Ellie nodded. Barely slept. Totally understandable. You've been through hell. Rachel leaned against the counter. But you're safe here. Okay. I promise. Ellie didn't answer. She didn't feel safe. Not anymore. Not anywhere. Later that day, Ellie sat on Rachel's couch with her laptop open. Camera feeds from her apartment streaming silently in 4 boxes on the screen. Nothing had changed. Everything was still. Untouched. But she couldn't shake the feeling that someone was watching. Not through a screen. Right now. In this room. She kept glancing at the hallway. At the windows. At the air vent above the television. Irrational, sure, but she'd learned that paranoia didn't always mean you were wrong. She fast-forwarded the previous night's footage. 1 a.m., 2 a.m., 3 a.m. Stillness. Then something strange. At 3:17 a.m., the camera facing the hallway flickered. Just for a second. A glitch. A pop of static. And then, a figure. Just one frame. But unmistakable. Tall. Shadowed. Just standing there in the middle of the hallway. Then gone. Ellie froze, her finger hovering over the spacebar. She rewound. Frame by frame. There it was. One image. One person. Facing the camera. But the face was blurred. Not from the camera, it was almost like the face was being smudged by something else. Like it didn't want to be seen. She exhaled, shaky, her heart pounding. It hadn't followed her. It had never left. Rachel walked in behind her. Everything okay? Ellie slammed the laptop shut. Yeah, just watching old footage. Rachel eyed her. You sure? You look like you saw a ghost. Ellie forced a weak laugh. Feels like I've been living with one. Rachel didn't laugh back. That night, Ellie agreed to sleep in Rachel's guest room. Rachel brought in an extra blanket and tried to be comforting. I'll leave the hall light on. Ellie nodded. Thanks. Seriously, Rachel added, this will pass. We'll figure it out. You just need rest. Ellie hesitated. Hey, can I ask you something? Of course. Have you ever felt someone watching you? Even when you're alone? Rachel blinked. What do you mean? Like, there's something in the room. Not a person. Just presence. Rachel was quiet for a beat too long. Then, I mean, I've had nightmares. When I was a kid. But nothing like that recently. Ellie nodded slowly. Right. Rachel left. The door clicked softly shut. Ellie locked it, then sat on the bed staring at the closet. It was slightly open. She stood, walked over and closed it. Clicked the light off. Climbed into bed. Waited. Sometime around 2 a.m. she woke up. The room was silent. But something felt wrong. She sat up, eyes adjusting to the dim light bleeding in from the hallway. The closet door was open again. Just an inch. She hadn't heard it. Hadn't dreamed it. It was just open. And she knew in her bones she hadn't left it that way. Ellie got up, her hands trembling. She took a deep breath and reached out. And shut the door again. Hard. Then she stepped back. There was a noise. Just the softest shift of breathing. But it wasn't hers. She yanked the door open. Nothing. Just coats. Thus, she turned back toward the bed. And froze. There was a note on her pillow. She hadn't heard a thing. She hadn't seen a thing. She picked it up with trembling fingers. Your friend talks in her sleep too. But her lullaby is out of tune. The next morning, Ellie told Rachel everything. The note, the camera footage, the glitch, the whispering, the tape recorder. Rachel didn't even pretend to brush it off this time. Okay, she said, her voice tight. Let's go to the police. And this time, we don't take no for an answer. Ellie agreed. They gathered everything. The tape, the notes, screenshots from the camera. They even downloaded the glitched footage onto a USB. But when they arrived at the station, something was wrong. The notes were blank. Every single one. Same paper, same folds, but no writing. The tape? Static. The USB? Corrupted. Rachel looked at her like she was seeing her for the first time. Ellie, I swear they were real. Ellie could only nod, her throat dry. They left the station empty-handed. And more scared than ever. Back at Rachel's, the unease grew into something heavier. Thicker. Like the air itself had changed. Rachel said she was going to take a nap. Clear her head. Ellie watched her go into the bedroom and close the door. Then sat on the couch, listening. Half an hour passed. Then she heard it. The soft hum. That same haunting, lilting melody. Coming from behind the door. Ellie's blood ran cold. She stood and pressed her ear to it. Rachel wasn't alone. There was another voice. Lower. Harmonizing. She opened the door slowly. Rachel lay perfectly still on the bed. Eyes closed. Humming. And someone else was under the bed. She dropped to her knees. But there was nothing there. Just air. She backed out slowly. Later, when Rachel woke up, Ellie didn't say anything. How could she? But she had made a decision. She had to go back to her apartment. She needed answers. Not from the police. Not from friends. From whoever was playing this game. If he wanted to be seen, wanted to be heard, then she would listen. That night, she returned home. Alone. She didn't turn on the lights. She walked through the dark apartment slowly, phone camera recording in one hand, flashlight in the other. Every door was open. Every closet empty. She went to the attic. The hatch had new markings. Carved words again. But this time, they weren't a sentence. They were coordinates. A location. The time. Tomorrow. 3:33 a.m. Ellie didn't sleep that night. She stared at the coordinates until they burned into her mind. Then she searched them. It was a location 2 hours away. An abandoned house. No photos. No records. Just a forgotten place at the edge of a forgotten road. She didn't know why she was going. She just knew she didn't have a choice. Whatever this thing was, it wasn't going to stop. And somehow, deep down, she didn't want it to. Ellie left before dawn. She didn't tell Rachel where she was going. She just left a note, scribbled hastily. I have to know who he is. I'll be back. Please don't follow me. She packed her phone, a flashlight, a kitchen knife, and her old tape recorder. For some reason she couldn't bear to leave it behind. Even though it had gone silent, it felt connected. Like a relic from someone else's memory that she was now living inside. The coordinates led her along winding back roads, through fog-thick forest and past towns that had long since stopped updating their welcome signs. She reached the house at exactly 3:27 a.m. It was crumbling, 2 stories of rotting wood and ivy. The front door hung slightly ajar, as though it had been expecting her. There were no lights, no sounds, just the soft rustle of wind in the trees, and the unmistakable feeling that she was not alone. Ellie took a deep breath and stepped inside. The air was cold and thick. It smelled of dust and mildew and something else, something faintly metallic like blood. Her flashlight swept across empty picture frames and tattered wallpaper. She moved slowly, 1 step at a time, her ears straining for any noise besides her own breath. The interior was larger than it should have been. Hallways twisted like they didn't belong. Some rooms connected to each other in ways that defied logic. Doors where there should have been walls, staircases leading down and then abruptly stopping. The architecture had gone mad or had been designed that way on purpose. To trap. She didn't call out. She didn't want to give him that. Instead, she whispered into the silence, "I'm here." Nothing answered. Not at first. She reached the staircase at exactly 3:33 a.m. As if on cue, the air changed. The house seemed to breathe, a low exhale that moved through the floorboards. Then she heard it. A whisper. Coming from above. The same words over and over again. Upstairs. 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 Each repetition was softer than the last, like the house itself was whispering through its walls. She climbed. The second floor was darker. Narrower. Like the house had shrunk around her. The hallway was lined with closed doors, each one labeled in a child's handwriting. Memories. Secrets. Things not said. You. She stopped in front of the last one. You. It had no doorknob. Just a slit at eye level. She leaned closer. There was a note inside. She pulled it out carefully. You brought me here. You wanted me. You fed me with your silence. Now I'm real. Her mouth went dry. Another whisper drifted down the hall. Not like before, this one was closer. Human. Ellie? Ellie, come see. She turned sharply. A door had opened behind her. Inside, a soft glow pulsed like a heartbeat. The room was bare except for a chair in the center, and a mirror facing it. Not a reflection mirror. A two-way one. The kind used in interrogation rooms. There was a speaker above the chair, crackling with static. She stepped inside. The door closed behind her with a click. The speaker flared to life. Then his voice. Full, smooth, almost affectionate. You came. Good girl. She clenched her fists. Who are you? I'm the one who stayed. When no one else did. When you locked yourself away in that apartment and waited for someone to notice. I noticed, Ellie. I've always noticed. Her voice trembled. You were never invited. Weren't I? The mirror flickered. Suddenly on the other side she saw herself. Sitting in the chair. But not right now. A version of herself from years ago. Younger. Pale. Tear streaked. Wearing hospital clothes. Talking to no one. Whispering. Humming. The voice continued. This was the first time. You made me here. In this room. With every word you whispered to the dark. Ellie stared, heart hammering. It wasn't just a stalker. It wasn't even a person. Was you, the voice said. I am you. The tape recorder in her bag clicked on. No one had touched it. Her voice came out, but not from the past. Who was her right now? Saying words she hadn't spoken yet. You are me. The part one buried. Then the mirror changed again. This time it was Rachel. Tied to the chair. Mouth covered. Eyes wide with terror. And standing behind her was Ellie. But not her. A version of her with a blank face. No eyes. No mouth. Just skin. Ellie screamed, where is she? The voice answered calmly. Still safe. For now. But she's in the way, Ellie. You know she is. You were almost whole again. Until she started prying. Until she distracted you. The speaker crackled again. Let me in, Ellie. Let me back in. Suddenly everything made sense. The stalker wasn't someone outside her. He was something she had created. Years ago, during her lowest point, alone in that hospital, broken, grieving the loss of her mother, abandoned by friends. She'd split. Created a voice in the dark. And over time she'd forgotten it. buried it. Until now. Until the silence returned. And he had clawed his way back up. She collapsed to her knees. "None of this is real," she whispered. "Then why are you shaking?" The mirror flickered again. Now she saw herself holding a knife, standing over Rachel. The caption at the bottom read, "Lullaby, ending scene." She gritted her teeth. "No, you don't get to write the ending." She pulled the tape recorder from her bag and pressed record. She looked directly at the mirror, voice shaking but strong. "You are not real. You are my wound, my fear, my hunger for connection. I see you now, but I am not you. I choose someone else." Silence, then static, louder, deafening. The mirror cracked, shattered, and behind it, nothing, just a blank wall. The house began to groan, wood snapping, glass cracking, a tremor beneath her feet. Ellie grabbed the chair and threw it at the wall. It bounced off. The room was collapsing. She ran to the door and yanked. It was locked. Then, behind her, the mirror's remains began pulling themselves together. Not glass, flesh. A figure began forming. Her shape, her face, but with no eyes, no mouth, just a smooth, blank surface. The thing reached for her and whispered in her voice, "One last lullaby." Ellie screamed, pulled the tape recorder out again and threw it against the creature's chest. It stuck, like it wanted to merge. She hit play. The last thing she'd recorded echoed out. "I am not you." The figure trembled, cracked, and began to melt, like wax in a flame. Ellie watched as the thing that had haunted her, fed off her loneliness, her fear, her grief, collapsed into nothing more than dust and static. The door burst open. Light poured in. The house exhaled its last breath. When she stepped outside, the sun was rising. The forest was still. Her phone buzzed. One message. From Rachel. "Where are you? Please come home." She smiled through the tears. Typed back. "On my way." Ellie didn't speak during the entire 2-hour drive back. The road felt longer this time. Quieter. But not in the comforting way silence used to feel. This was different. The kind of silence that waited. That listened. The kind that tested whether the thing you destroyed had really gone away. By the time she pulled into the city, her hands were stiff from gripping the wheel too tightly, and the sun had fully risen. The world outside looked perfectly normal. Cars, dog walkers, someone jogging with headphones, but everything felt off-kilter, like she was watching it all through thick glass. She parked 2 blocks away from Rachel's apartment. The tape recorder sat on the passenger seat beside her. It hadn't made a sound since she left the house. She considered tossing it into a dumpster, or driving it to a lake and letting it sink to the bottom. Instead, she pocketed it. Something told her this wasn't over. Not quite yet. Rachel answered the door in a hurry. "Ellie?" She looked like she hadn't slept. Hair disheveled. Phone still clutched in her hand like she'd been pacing all night. Ellie gave her a faint smile. "Told you I'd come back." Rachel pulled her in, hugged her tight. "Where were you? You didn't answer your phone, and then I read the note and—" "I went to find him," Ellie said quietly. Rachel pulled back. "And?" Ellie hesitated. "He wasn't real." Rachel frowned. "What does that mean?" "I mean, he wasn't a person. Not someone out there stalking me. He was something I made up. A part of me." Rachel was quiet. Too quiet. "Ellie," she said slowly, "what do you mean you made him?" Ellie told her everything. About the mirror, the house, the voices, the version of herself she saw tied up in the chair, the faceless double, the whispering lullaby that used to soothe her during panic attacks in the hospital, the version of herself she had forgotten until he made her remember. Rachel didn't speak until Ellie finished. Then cautiously, "That's a lot." Ellie nodded. "I know how it sounds." "No," Rachel said. "I believe you. I do." "But Ellie, if all this was you, then how do we explain my note? The one I found under the door." Ellie's eyes flicked up. Rachel went to her drawer and pulled it out. Same paper. Same jagged handwriting. "We were just starting to connect." She placed it between them. "Explain that, Ellie. If it was all in your head, then how did he follow you here?" Ellie stared at the note for a long time. There were only 2 possibilities. Either she was still not well. He hadn't come from her. At least, not entirely. She dug into her pocket, pulled out the tape recorder and pressed play. Nothing. Just static. Then, crackling. Words. "You opened the door." The recorder clicked off again. Rachel stepped back. "What the hell?" "He's not just in me," Ellie whispered. "He was waiting. That house, whatever it was, it let something out. Rachel's voice dropped. You think you brought it back? I don't think I ever left it behind. That night, Ellie couldn't sleep. She sat on Rachel's couch with every light in the apartment turned on, watching the hallway the same way she used to watch her apartment on camera. Like it might move. Like it might blink. She kept replaying everything. The mirror. The voice. The phrase, "You fed me with your silence." It had felt symbolic then. But what if it wasn't? What if silence wasn't what brought him? What if it was the opposite? She had started healing. Started speaking again. Reaching out. Reconnecting. And that's when he had come back. What if he didn't feed off silence? What if he fed off attention? Around 3 a.m., Rachel called out from the bedroom. Ellie? She didn't sound right. Ellie stood slowly. What's wrong? No answer. She walked toward the door. Pushed it open. Rachel was sitting up in bed, staring at the far corner. Did you hear it? She whispered. Ellie's heart dropped. Hear what? That song. Ellie's stomach turned. The lullaby? Rachel nodded. It was humming. From inside the wall. She turned slowly to Ellie. And Ellie's breath caught. Rachel's eyes were different. Dilated. What? Too black. Too wide. She blinked once and they were normal again. Ellie forced a smile. You're probably just exhausted. Rachel smiled too. But it wasn't hers. The next day, Ellie left the apartment under the excuse of picking up groceries. She walked for nearly an hour before ending up at her old building. The landlord hadn't rented it out yet. The for lease sign was still crooked in the window. She buzzed the old code. It still worked. Inside, the apartment was exactly as she'd left it, like a snapshot of her fear. Cameras unplugged. The air stale. Shadows lingering in the corners like smoke that hadn't fully cleared. She sat on the floor where the tape recorder first moved on its own. And waited. After an hour, nothing happened. Then, the recorder clicked. And this time it didn't whisper. It laughed. Not hers. Not Rachel's. A male voice. Oh, familiar. Then. You thought naming me would bury me. But names are just introductions. I am what's left when the lights go off. I am what waits when you're not looking. And now, I'm in someone else. Ellie's mouth went dry. Rachel. She ran back to the apartment. Her hands trembled as she unlocked the door. Inside was silent. Too silent. Rachel? No answer. She walked slowly into the bedroom. Rachel was asleep. Or pretending to be. Lying perfectly still. But the humming came from beneath the bed. The same melody. Softer. More seductive. Ellie crouched down slowly. Her heart pounding. There, under the bed. Nothing. Just the voice. Whispering. She's almost ready. Ellie stood up, shaking. Rachel stirred. Opened her eyes. You're back, she said. Ellie forced a nod. Just needed some air. Rachel smiled. You shouldn't have left. And Ellie noticed then. Her hands. They were covered in dust. Old wood dust. The kind you'd find in a house that hadn't been touched in years. That night, Ellie searched Rachel's phone while she slept. Messages. Draft. Nothing strange. Until she checked the voice memos. There were 3. Each labeled lullaby. She pressed play. The first was silence. The second, her own voice, crying. The third, was someone else. Someone singing. A lullaby she didn't know. But Rachel did. Because from the bed, half asleep, Rachel began to hum along. Ellie sat alone in the living room. Everything was spiraling again. He wasn't just part of her. He was free now. Free and spreading. The tape recorder clicked. Again. And this time it played her own voice. You gave me life. Then the voice morphed. Rachel's voice now. Let me back in. Ellie stared at it. The recorder began melting in her hand, plastic warping, metal bubbling. She dropped it. Backed away. But the damage was done. She had brought him into herself. And now he was choosing someone else. The next morning Rachel was gone. Not just out getting coffee. Not in the building. Gone. Her wallet, phone, keys, all still on the table. Her shoes were by the door. But no Rachel. Ellie searched the apartment top to bottom. She opened every door, every drawer, even the laundry basket. She kept telling herself it was ridiculous. Rachel wouldn't just disappear like this. Except, Ellie would. And once upon a time had. She sat on the edge of the bed, listening. Nothing. No whispers. No humming. Just an unbearable stillness. And then, finally, a knock. Not at the front door. Inside the wall. Ellie froze. There it was again. 3 slow knocks. Then a pause. Then a voice. It came softly, like someone whispering into her ear from the inside out. She's not gone. Just underneath. The walls didn't shake. The room didn't flicker. The world remained maddeningly normal, even as something completely unnatural spoke from the bones of the building. Ellie stood, backed into the hallway, eyes darting to every crack, every shadow. "Where is she?" she asked aloud, hating the way her voice trembled. The answer came just a breath behind her. "Where you used to go. To be alone. Remember?" It took her a full hour to figure it out. At first, she thought the voice meant the hospital. Or the house. But then she remembered the notebooks. Dozens of them, scribbled with old memories, therapy exercises, mantras, affirmations she'd written to herself during her recovery. She'd burned most of them. But one still sat at the bottom of a shoebox in her old apartment. She ran back, broke in with a hairpin and dug it out. Page 17. She knew it by heart. The safest place is under. Not deep, just far enough to hide. Under the blankets. Under the water. Under the sound. She'd used to say it over and over when the world got too loud. And suddenly she knew. Not metaphor. Not poetry. Literal. Rachel was under. Ellie returned to Rachel's apartment with a plan. Well, not a plan. An instinct. She pulled up the corner of the bedroom rug, revealing floorboards. She pried one loose. Then another. And another. Eventually, she uncovered a small crawlspace beneath the apartment. Something no contractor or realtor had ever mentioned. Just a void between levels. Dead space. But in the dark, her flashlight caught something. Fingertips. Moving. She screamed and pulled the board wider. Rachel's face emerged, pale, blank, unmoving. Her eyes were wide open. But she didn't speak. Didn't blink. Ellie reached for her and Rachel jerked back, scuttling like a spider deeper into the shadows. "Rachel!" Ellie cried. "It's me!" From the darkness, a whisper. "No, not Rachel." Ellie froze. The voice was hers. Her own voice, but slurred, off-kilter, like it had been copied and distorted. "Rachel is under now. I'm what rose up." Ellie didn't hesitate. She climbed down after her. The crawlspace was larger than it should have been. Endless, almost like the hallway in the house. A dream logic governed it, not physics. Every few feet she saw flashes. Fragments of her past. A broken chair. A needle. A single ballet slipper. Her childhood bedroom door. All out of place. Like it, the voice, was using her memories to build its nest. She kept walking. The air got colder. Heavier. Rachel stood at the far end, facing away. Her back was rigid. Her head tilted slightly, like she was listening to something Ellie couldn't hear. "Rachel," Ellie said softly. No answer. She stepped closer. "Hey, it's me." Rachel turned and smiled. But it wasn't her smile. The eyes were wrong again. Too wide. Too black. The smile too slow, like it was being remembered rather than felt. Rachel spoke in a flat, emotionless tone. "Ellie, you shouldn't be here. I came to bring you back. There's no going back. You opened the door. I closed it. Not in time." Then the walls around them shuddered. The air became thick with whispering, 100 voices, all versions of Ellie. Screaming, laughing, crying, begging. "Don't leave me again. I don't want to be alone. You promised I'd never be quiet again. Let me in, let me in, let me in." Ellie clutched her head. It was her. All her. Her past selves, her pain, her coping mechanisms, her ghosts, all crawling over each other to exist again. Rachel stepped forward. Or what was left of her. "Come with me," she said softly. Her voice almost sounded like herself now. "Let's go back. To the way things were. Just you and me. In the silence. You don't have to pretend anymore." Ellie looked into her eyes. And saw herself. Alone. Curled up on the floor of her old apartment. Hiding from the world. Convinced no one would ever really love her if they saw her. Ellie took a breath. Then said, "No." The whispers stopped. The lights went out. The crawlspace vanished. And for a moment there was nothing. Just black. Then, she was in her body again. Collapsed on the bedroom floor. Rachel above her, gasping for air as if she'd been underwater. Eyes clear. Hands trembling. What happened?" she whispered. Ellie helped her sit up. "You're back," she said, crying. "You're really back." Rachel shook. "He was inside. I could hear him. He knew everything about you." Ellie nodded. "He is me. Or part of me. The part one locked away and never looked at again." Rachel met her eyes. "Then how do we stop him?" Ellie looked down at her hands and whispered, "We don't bury him again. We listen. Then we let him go." That night they sat on the living room floor. Ellie placed the warped tape recorder between them. It hadn't made a sound since the crawlspace. She pressed record and began to talk. She spoke every ugly truth she'd ever swallowed. She admitted the things she was ashamed of. She talked about the nights she wished she didn't exist. About the time she stole her mother's pain pills just to sleep. About how afraid she was of being known. Rachel listened. And when Ellie finished, she said, "Now me." And she began her own story. They spoke for hours. Not crying. Just speaking. And the tape recorder stayed silent. It had nothing left to say. Ellie buried it in the garden the next morning. Not like a body. Like a seed. And as she covered it with dirt, she whispered, "You can rest now." The wind stirred. No voices replied. Just peace. For the first time in a long, long while. For a few days there was peace. Rachel moved back into her apartment. Ellie stayed with her. They cooked. They talked. They laughed in ways that didn't sound forced. The tape recorder remained buried in the small patch of garden outside. Neither of them mentioned it. Not because they were scared. Because it felt done. Whatever had followed Ellie, whatever had clawed its way out through her silence, it had been faced, spoken to, named, acknowledged. And as Ellie had come to realize, naming a thing didn't make it stronger. It made it visible. Until the dreams came back. At first, Ellie thought they were just leftover fragments. Residual trauma. But they weren't hers. They weren't even Rachel's. They were someone else's. A child maybe. Alone in a dark room, whispering lullabies to herself. Locked in a place with no windows. No mirrors. Just a door with a single word carved into it. Listen. One night, Ellie woke up with blood on her fingers. She'd scratched the word quiet into her own thigh in her sleep. Rachel found her in the bathroom, shaking. "I thought it was over," Ellie whispered. "I really thought." Rachel wrapped her in a towel. "We ended something. But not everything." Ellie looked up at her, terrified. "Then what's left?" Rachel didn't answer right away. Then she said, "Maybe, not all of this came from you." The idea sat with Ellie like a stone in her stomach. Not all of it. She replayed the events again, start to finish. The letters, the whispers, the doppelganger, the mirror in the house. She had always assumed it was all her. Her past, her trauma, her mind cracking under pressure. But what if something else had found her while she was vulnerable? Not something inside her. Something outside. And what if it wasn't trying to torment her? What if it was calling for help? That night, she dreamed of the mirror again. Except this time, she wasn't looking at herself. She was looking at a child. 8, maybe 9 years old. Long black hair. Pale skin. Eyes wide with fear. She sat in a chair, humming. The same lullaby. But it sounded wrong now. Slowed down. Distorted like it was decaying. And behind her, a voice whispered. She sang so she wouldn't forget her name. Ellie woke up gasping. The recorder was on her nightstand. Not buried. Not dusty. Clean. Polished. Waiting. Rachel swore she didn't dig it up. But neither of them questioned it for long. They drove to the house that afternoon. The one Ellie had visited before, the decaying, abandoned thing on the edge of the woods. It was still there. Still untouched. Still watching. But this time, Ellie brought Rachel inside with her. They walked through it slowly. The rooms hadn't changed. The mirror was still shattered. The chair still stood in the center of the parlor like it had never been moved. Except now, there were photos on the wall. Ellie's photos. Ones she'd never taken. Her as a child. Crying. Hiding. Bleeding. One of Rachel. Asleep in her bed. And another. A girl neither of them recognized. The same girl from Ellie's dream. They searched the house. Found nothing living. But Ellie kept hearing something. A soft knock. Not loud. Just insistent. Tap, tap, tap. She followed it to the basement door. It hadn't been there last time. But today it waited open. The stairs stretched down into pitch black. No hesitation this time. She went down. Rachel followed. The basement was lined with hundreds of cassette tapes. Every wall. Each one labeled in messy handwriting. Each one with a name. Not of artists. People. Isabel North. Caden Hart. Marissa F. Rachel Byrne. Ellie froze. Rachel's eyes widened. She grabbed one with her name and slid it into the recorder. Pressed play. A scream. High-pitched. Terrified. Rachel dropped the tape. It kept playing on the floor. A voice, Ellie's again, whispering, Now you know what it feels like. They didn't speak as they left the basement, didn't speak as they drove home. Back in the apartment, Rachel curled into herself on the couch. Ellie made tea but didn't drink it. Instead, she sat with the recorder again. The same question haunted her. If this didn't come from me, then who did it come from? The answer came slowly. Not as a whisper this time, but as a memory. Her mother's voice. From a long time ago. You were always such a quiet baby. Sometimes I used to wonder if you were even real. Ellie hadn't thought about that in years. But suddenly she remembered more. More than she'd ever wanted to. The silent apartment as a child. The games her mother played. Taping her mouth shut as punishment. Locking her in the closet if she cried. Telling her to listen for the monsters who only came when you made noise. She'd grown up believing silence kept her safe. Believing noise would bring pain. And somehow, through that twisted logic, through that fear, something else had slipped through. Had heard her silence as an invitation. Had come to fill it. Rachel sat beside her. You're remembering something, she said quietly. Ellie nodded. My mother used to punish me with silence. Not screaming. Not hitting. Just taking sound away. Locking me in with nothing but my own breathing. Hours at a time. Rachel swallowed. Mine did something similar. Would blast static through a baby monitor and make me listen. Said it would train me to block out distractions. Ellie's head snapped up. You never told me that. I forgot. Until now. Ellie stood. Her hands were shaking. I don't think this thing started with us, she whispered. Rachel looked up. What do you mean? I think we were chosen. They pulled out the tapes. Went through names. Googled. One by one. Most were dead. Missing. Or had spent time in psychiatric institutions. Some were suicides. A few were alive but had gone completely off-grid. Rachel found a forum thread. Obscure. Archive. A woman named Isabel had posted a story in 2009 about hearing whispers through her child's baby monitor, about voices hiding behind white noise. She ended the post with, I've stopped listening now, but I think it knows I heard it. It's coming through the walls. She hadn't posted again. Back in the basement of the house, every tape had a pattern. Each one started the same. White noise, then a voice, always a different one, but always the same message. I heard you. Sometimes followed by, do you hear me now? And then screaming. Ellie and Rachel spent the night transcribing a few. By morning their hands were cramped, their eyes bloodshot, but they understood. This wasn't a haunting, it was a cycle. Each victim had heard the voice, some as children, some later, all during isolation, all after silence, all during moments when they were most vulnerable, during grief, mental illness, sleep paralysis, heartbreak. It would appear, whisper, offer a voice to fill the void, then burrow deeper, until it wore them like clothing. Ellie looked up from the transcripts. So what do we do? Rachel pointed to the last tape, one without a name, just a single word, origin. They slid it into the recorder, pressed play, nothing. Then, a woman's voice, come, warm, too familiar, Ellie's mother. If you're hearing this, then you know now. Rachel's eyes widened. We didn't want to pass it on. But it doesn't die. It chooses. It waits. And when we break, it speaks. I tried to drown it. Tried to bury it. But all I did was delay it. It's not one voice. It's all of them. It's what's left when no one listens. The tape ended. And the recorder sparked. Then stopped. Smoke curled out from its seams. It was done. Ellie sat in silence. And for the first time, she understood. This wasn't her creation. It wasn't just trauma. It was a generational wound. A voice passed through blood and silence. A parasite that thrived on repression. It wasn't a ghost. It was a symptom. One that would repeat itself forever. Unless someone spoke through it. Ellie turned to Rachel. I'm going to record something. Rachel looked up. What? A new message. She set up a fresh tape, pressed record, and spoke. To the next girl. The next Ellie. The next Rachel. This voice isn't you. But it knows you. It knows the silence you were raised in. The things you weren't allowed to say. The way you learned to be small so others could be loud. But you don't have to carry it. You can let it speak and then let it go. You can name it. Face it. Bury it. Not in fear. But in peace. And if you're hearing this, then I heard you too. You're not alone anymore. The tape clicked off. Ellie smiled. Rachel was crying. But softly. The kind of cry that comes from release. from hope. It started again with a knock. Not from the door. Not from the walls. From inside the mirror. Ellie and Rachel had fallen asleep on the couch after recording the new tape. Sunlight bled through the curtains, soft and warm for the first time in weeks. For a moment, everything was quiet. Not the kind of quiet that hurt. Not the haunted hush of fear. The kind that felt like pause, a held breath after healing. Then it came. Knock, knock. Rachel stirred first. Her eyes shot open. She looked toward the bathroom. The mirror. Knock, knock, knock. Ellie was already standing. The mirror was fogged, though no one had used the bathroom. A single handprint pressed against the glass, from the inside. This time there was no scream, no whisper, no guttural hiss. Only one sound, a little girl humming. The same broken lullaby. Ellie stepped forward. Rachel reached out to stop her. Wait. But Ellie didn't hesitate. She wiped the fog with her hand. Her reflection didn't move. Instead it smiled. Not malevolent. Not twisted. Just tired. And then it spoke, not aloud but through the glass. I don't want to do this anymore. The girl. The one Ellie had seen in her dreams, buried beneath whispers and static. She was staring back now, through Ellie's face, through the mask of the voice that had used her. I know, Ellie said softly. You don't have to. The reflection's lips quivered. But they made me. They locked me away. Told me I was dangerous. That if I ever screamed, the world would break. Ellie's throat ached. She stepped closer. They were wrong. They were just afraid. And afraid people pass down monsters they don't even understand. Then what am I? Ellie took a deep breath. You're the echo of everything no one listened to. You're the scream that never got to be screamed. Tears rolled down the reflection's cheeks. I want to leave. Ellie nodded. You can. But not through me. Not through her. Not through anyone. She pressed her palm to the mirror. A single crack split down the middle, not violent but clean. Like an incision being stitched closed in reverse. The reflection stared at her hand, and placed its own against it. The mirror glowed faintly. The hum stopped. And with a single blink the girl was gone. Ellie was looking at her own reflection again, older, wiser, whole. For the first time in years she didn't flinch. The rest of the day passed without incident. The apartment felt light as if a weight had lifted. Ellie and Rachel went for a walk. Got coffee. Talked about things other than trauma, movies, books, how awful oat milk really was when it got warm. They smiled, laughed, even flirted a little. They didn't talk about the mirror or the house or the voice. Not because they were avoiding it, but because they didn't have to. They had faced it, and survived. That night, Rachel left to get a few things from her apartment. Ellie stayed back tidying up. She opened a window to let in some air. Then sat down, pulled out a journal and wrote 3 words at the top of the page. I heard you. Then she started writing her story, the real one. Not the cleaned up version. Not the version she used to give therapists or friends or interviews. But the raw one. About her mother's silence. About the girl in the mirror. About the voice that almost wore her skin. She wrote until the pen ran dry. And still the silence stayed kind. It wasn't until she went to bed that she noticed something. The tape recorder. It was gone. She turned the apartment upside down. Checked every drawer, every bag, even under the couch. Gone. She called Rachel. No answer. She checked her phone. 1 unread message. From Rachel. Just 3 words. Don't follow me. Ellie's stomach dropped. She ran to Rachel's apartment. The lights were on. The door was unlocked. Inside it looked normal. Coffee mug on the counter. Jacket tossed on the chair. Except for the smell. Burnt plastic. Melted metal. She followed it to the bedroom. And there, on the floor, the recorder. But not the same one. It was warped. Melted at the edges like it had been set on fire and frozen mid-flame. A tape was half inserted. Ellie picked it up. Her name was on the label. Just Ellie 2. She pressed play. Static. Then Rachel's voice. Faint. Strained. Ellie, if you're hearing this, it got me. But not like before. It didn't take me. I let it in. I needed to see what it really was. I couldn't understand it from the outside. It's not a demon. Or a ghost. It's grief. Bottled. Stored. Carried. Inherited. It has no mouth, so it uses ours. Has no story, so it takes ours. But I think I found where it lives. Where it started. There's another house. Not the one we went to. Older. Before either of us. Pause. I'm going there. Then silence. Then almost inaudible. If I don't come back, don't come looking. Ellie sat frozen. heart racing. She knew Rachel, knew her stubbornness, her deep need to understand, to fix. But this wasn't about fixing anymore. It was about finishing. She grabbed her coat, keys, flashlight, another fresh tape, and the tape labeled Ellie too. She took it with her, just in case she didn't come back. The second house was farther out. Ellie didn't know how she knew where it was, but she did. Like the map had always been in her bones, waiting to be read. She drove for 2 hours into the forest. No street signs, no cell service. Eventually the trees parted, and there it was, older than memory. Not a house, a cottage, rotting, swallowed by moss and vines. Windows blackened. No birds, no wind, no sound, not even her own footsteps. Just waiting. She stepped inside. It was silent. Not empty. Silent. As if every sound had been vacuumed out of the space decades ago. In the center, a well. Inside the cottage, stone-lined, unlit. She leaned over the edge and heard it, humming. The lullaby, but layered now. Dozens of voices. Ellie, Rachel, the girl, the mothers, the screamers, the silenced, all of them, singing in unison. Then, a face, far below. Not Rachel. Her, the girl again, but no longer afraid. She looked up and smiled. Ellie whispered, "What are you?" The girl's voice echoed up. "I'm the sound of every story no one believed." Then, "But you believed." Ellie sat on the well's edge. She didn't cry. She didn't scream. She just said, "I'm listening." And the girl, the voice, the echo, the wound, said nothing. Because that was enough. Then the voice faded. And for the first time since childhood, the silence didn't frighten her. It comforted her, held her. A breeze stirred. Light returned. And the humming stopped. Ellie stood up. The tape in her pocket was warm. She pressed record and said, "I'm Ellie, and I came here afraid. But I'm leaving whole. If you're listening, you're not broken. You're just carrying stories that need to be heard. You can let them go now." She stopped the tape, tossed it into the well, and walked away. Ellie didn't sleep the night she returned from the second house. Her body was exhausted, but her mind refused to rest. The air in her apartment no longer felt heavy or charged, just quiet. Not a threatening quiet, just absence. The kind you feel after a song ends and you forget it was even playing. She took a long shower, scrubbed the mud from her arms, washed her face 3 times. But she couldn't shake one thing. Rachel hadn't come back. Not a message. Not a sign. Nothing. And now that the voices were gone, there was no echo left to follow. Except one. She replayed the last tape Rachel had left. Over. And over. And over. "I think I found where it lives. It's not a ghost, it's grief. If I don't come back, don't come looking." But Ellie had gone. And she had come back. So why hadn't Rachel? The question scratched at her like a fingernail inside her skull. It didn't feel finished. And Ellie didn't believe in unfinished. She couldn't. She grabbed her bag, flashlight, and keys again. But this time she brought one more thing. The original letter. The first one she ever received from the Stalker. The one that started it all. She unfolded it carefully. It still smelled faintly of musty lavender. The ink was slightly faded, but the message was unchanged. "I hear you breathing at night. I know when you're pretending not to see me." Ellie had always assumed it was a threat. But something in her gut told her now. It wasn't. Not a threat. A warning. She stared at the handwriting. It didn't match Rachel's, of course. But something in the curvature of the letters, the way the I leaned too far left, how the G was looped like a music note, felt intentional. And then, suddenly she realized, she'd seen that handwriting before. In one of Rachel's notebooks. Ellie sprinted to the bookshelf and yanked down one of the spiral-bound journals Rachel had left behind. It was from a year ago, full of scribbles, article drafts, research notes. In the margin of one page, a single word had been written and scratched out. Ellie. The same slanted E. The same looped L. The same left-leaning I. Her heart stuttered. She flipped through the rest of the pages. Notes on trauma. On shared delusions. On the transmission of grief. But also, let the voice choose her. She has to believe it's real. Don't interfere too soon. Ellie's mouth went dry. She turned the last page. A single sentence had been written across it. "I'm sorry I became the house." Ellie stood still for a full minute, letting her thoughts crawl back into alignment. Rachel hadn't just joined her investigation. She had guided it. Maybe even started it. which meant Rachel had sent the first letter. Not to scare her, to pull her in. What? Ellie opened her laptop, typed Rachel's name into the browser, found an old academic article she'd published in college, a deep dive into generational trauma and psychological contagion. And there, buried in the abstract, when grief cannot be spoken, it will find a vessel. Sometimes a voice, sometimes a story, sometimes a person. It does not disappear. It transfers. It waits. And if no one listens, it becomes a house. Ellie read the words again and again, until her reflection in the laptop screen looked more like a stranger than herself. Rachel hadn't gone to the second house to destroy the voice. She'd gone to contain it, just like someone else had before her. And Ellie had followed her, just like Rachel wanted. She returned to the second house at dawn. It looked the same, old, decaying, forgotten. But now the air around it pulsed. Not loud, not threatening, but alive. The cottage door was slightly open. Ellie stepped inside, holding her breath. No well this time. Just a chair, facing a wall. Rachel sat in it. Back to Ellie. Still silent. Ellie's chest caved. Rachel? No answer. She stepped closer. Ratch, it's me. Nothing. She reached out gently and touched Rachel's shoulder. Rachel turned. Her eyes were hollow. Not dead. Not possessed. Just full. Overflowing. And then she smiled. Softly. You came back, she said. Rachel looked older. Like she'd lived 100 years inside that house. But she wasn't scared. She wasn't empty. Ellie dropped to her knees beside her. I thought I lost you. Rachel shook her head. You didn't? I just had to stay long enough to learn how to carry it. Carry what? Rachel looked around the room, not at it, through it. The thing we've both been hearing. The thing in the mirror. The voice. It isn't separate from us. It is us. Every scream we swallowed. Every door we closed. Every secret we kept. She touched Ellie's face. And now it's quiet. Because we finally let it speak. Tears welled up in Ellie's eyes. You should have told me. Rachel nodded. I tried. In the letters. In the tapes. But you weren't ready to hear it from me. You had to find it yourself. That's the only way to break the loop. Ellie sat back. Tried to process it. You became the voice? Rachel nodded. For a while. But why? Rachel's eyes darkened. Not with fear. With understanding. Because someone had to. Someone always has to carry the grief. To house it. Until someone else listens. Ellie stared at the floor. So now what? Rachel stood. And as she did, the room seemed to breathe. The walls stopped creaking. The air stilled. Rachel reached into her jacket and pulled out a tape. Unlabeled. Handed it to Ellie. You record the ending. Ellie hesitated. What do I say? Rachel smiled. Tell the truth. They stood together, side by side, as sunlight crept through the warped wood slats of the walls. The silence was no longer suffocating. It was sacred. Ellie pressed record. And spoke. This is the final tape. My name is Ellie and I thought I was being stalked. I thought something was trying to possess me, scare me, break me. But it wasn't a stranger. It wasn't a demon. It was grief. The one no one ever talked about. The kind that doesn't scream, just waits. And it waited for me. Until I listened. Now I'm here. And I'm listening. And I'm ready to let it go. For me. For Rachel. For the girl in the mirror. For all of us. She stopped the tape. The machine clicked softly. Rachel whispered, thank you. And then, the house exhaled. Cracks healed. Vines curled back. The cottage, once a cage, now felt like a sanctuary. Rachel turned to Ellie. You ready to go? Ellie nodded. Yeah. Together they walked out the front door. Into the sunlight. No voices followed. No mirror shattered. No shadows moved. Just wind. And peace. That night, back at the apartment, Ellie placed the final tape into a box. Labeled it, Listening. She wrote a letter. The last one. And mailed it. To herself. Because some endings deserve to be remembered. Even by the ones who survived them. 3 weeks passed. No more letters. No knocks. No tapes. No voices in the walls or in the mirror. The apartment felt normal again. And that, in itself, was strange. Ellie found herself waking up before her alarm. Cooking. Reading. Laughing at dumb shows. Even her therapist had commented, you look lighter. Rachel had moved into a small house across town. A quiet street with big trees and no history. They still talked every day, sometimes about the tapes but more often about normal things. Life things. Rachel had even gone on a date. And Ellie? She had started writing again. Really writing. Not just recounting the events, but telling the truth. She called it the house that listened. One morning, she got a call from a number she didn't recognize. An older woman's voice, warm but cautious. Is this Ellie Grayson? Yes. My name is Dr. Helen Calder. I used to work with your mother. Ellie's breath caught. I'm sorry, my mother passed years ago. I know. I was her psychiatrist. Back when, well, before she was institutionalized. The silence on Ellie's end was a brick wall. I'm not calling to stir up anything, Dr. Calder said gently. I read something you published. The House That Listened. And I recognized the themes. The symbols. What do you mean? I think you should come see something. Something your mother left behind. Something she asked me to keep. Just in case you ever started hearing the voice too. The drive to the clinic took an hour. It was tucked between the hills just outside the city. Small, unassuming, quiet. When Ellie arrived, Dr. Calder greeted her with a firm handshake and kind eyes. She always knew it would pass to you, she said, leading Ellie down a hallway. Not because of anything supernatural. Because trauma behaves like a virus. It seeks hosts. Silence makes it stronger. But attention? That's what weakens it. Ellie followed in silence, pulse quickening. She kept journals. Hundreds. Most were unreadable. But one was meant for you. Dr. Calder unlocked a storage drawer and handed Ellie a faded leather notebook. On the first page in her mother's handwriting. For Ellie, when you start to hear her. Ellie opened the book slowly. The first entries were rambling, disjointed, paranoid. Descriptions of shadows and mirrors. Voices behind walls. Letters she claimed were written in her own hand, though she never remembered writing them. But then the tone changed. It became structured, purposeful. It's not a ghost. It's a wound. It needs a listener, not a savior. If my daughter ever hears it, I hope she listens. I couldn't. I was too broken. But she might still be whole. Ellie's vision blurred. The final page had one sentence. Just one. The house isn't a place. It's a line. And you, Ellie, you're next. Ellie closed the notebook and looked up at Dr. Calder. She thought it would pass to me? Dr. Calder nodded. Not by curse. By exposure. Generational trauma doesn't just disappear. It migrates. Especially in families that never spoke. Ellie stared down at her hands. I think I've broken it. I listened. I recorded it. It's quiet now. Dr. Calder smiled, but there was something sorrowful in her eyes. That may be true. But it doesn't mean it's gone. Ellie's stomach sank. I thought you said attention weakens it. It does, Dr. Calder said. But that's only one part. Ellie looked at her, confused. What's the other part? Dr. Calder paused, then said, it wants to be heard by others. Not just you. Ellie returned home shaken. The silence in her apartment was different now. Still not threatening. Still not haunted. But watchful. Like someone was waiting. She opened her laptop and stared at the final tape she digitized, the one she'd made after the cottage. She hadn't uploaded it. Not yet. Too raw. Too real. Too final. If she released it, people would listen. Maybe even understand. But what if that was the point? What if sharing it was how it moved? Rachel came over that evening. They sat on the balcony, wrapped in blankets, sipping wine. Ellie told her everything. The call, the journal, the final line. Rachel was quiet for a long time. Then finally asked, what do you want to do? Ellie looked up at the stars. She remembered what it had felt like when the mirror cracked. When the voice stopped. When the silence felt like choice. I want to share it. Rachel nodded. Then share it. Just be honest. Don't sensationalize. Don't turn it into horror. It was horror. Yeah, Rachel said. But it was also healing. Ellie smiled. Then whispered, okay. That night she uploaded the audio. Gave it no title. Just a short description. This is the last tape. Not a confession. Not a warning. Just a record. Of a voice. A house. A girl. And the silence that came after. She hit publish. And waited. The first message came within hours. From someone in Nebraska. I heard this same voice when I was 9. Everyone thought I was lying. Thank you. Then another. My mother kept mirrors covered. Always. She said, it listens. I never knew what she meant. Now I do. And another. I thought I was alone. Now I don't. Thousands of plays. Then tens of thousands. Then articles. Podcast interviews. DMs from survivors, doctors, historians. People weren't afraid. They were relieved. Like someone had finally described the shape of their own shadows. But not all the messages were comforting. One arrived on the 7th day. No sender. No subject. Just, you open the door. It's walking again. Ellie froze. She called Rachel. Voicemail. She tried again. Still voicemail. Then she noticed a knock at the mirror. She crept into the bathroom. Everything was still. The glass was fogged, just like before. She stepped closer, wiped it clean. Her reflection stared back. This time it moved in sync. No delay. No girl. No second face. But then, a flicker. Not in the mirror. In the corner of the room. A shadow. Small. Still. Watching. Ellie didn't scream. She simply whispered, "I see you. I'm still listening. But I'm not your house anymore." The shadow blinked. And vanished. That night Rachel finally called. She sounded tired. But not scared. "I've been hearing it again," she admitted. Not loud. Not dangerous. Just, like a whisper under a door. Ellie nodded. "Yeah, me too." Rachel was quiet for a while. Then said, "Maybe it never goes away." "Maybe not," Ellie said. "But that doesn't mean we have to carry it alone." Rachel exhaled. "Want to make one more tape?" Ellie smiled. "Yeah, let's make it a love letter. To all the people who were told their voice didn't matter." They recorded it together. Side by side. No fear. No monsters. No screaming. Just two voices. Telling the truth. Acknowledging the weight. And letting it go. The final tape was released on a Sunday. No intro. No music. Just two voices, Ellie and Rachel, recounting what had happened, what they'd learned, and what they wished someone had told them sooner. It wasn't a haunting. It was a holding. Not a spirit. A scar. We were never possessed. We were inherited. They ended the recording with one line, spoken together. "If you're listening, now it belongs to you." And they meant it. The reaction was explosive. The episode went viral in under 24 hours. Listeners flooded comment sections, forums, TikToks, emails. Some claimed it had healed them. Others said it made their homes feel louder. But one thing became clear. Ellie had started something she couldn't take back. She got an email from a university professor in Germany. He'd been studying cases of intergenerational psychic transmission for years and had come across similar stories. Different places, different people, same patterns. In his words, "It is not supernatural. It is psychospiritual. Passes like trauma. It echoes. When one person gives it form, others begin to hear it." Ellie replied politely. But the next sentence in his email kept her up at night. "Every time someone listens, it grows a little louder." The following week, Ellie got a letter in the mail. A real one. Handwritten. No return address. "I hear her again. Just like I did when I was 12. Only now, she's asking who else will listen." Inside was a photo. It showed a girl standing in front of a cracked mirror. The reflection was Ellie, smiling. But she had never posed for that photo. She called Rachel immediately. They sat in Ellie's apartment, the photo between them, a silence neither of them could explain. Rachel's voice was low. "I think, maybe we didn't break the cycle." Ellie didn't respond. She was staring at the reflection in the photo. The way her smile curled wrong. Just a little. Enough. Then Rachel said something that cracked the world open. "What if we weren't the first ones to listen?" Ellie blinked. "What?" Rachel pulled out her phone, opened a folder labeled House Underscore Theory, and scrolled through dozens of screenshots, forum posts, Reddit threads, letters, journal entries from strangers across decades. One thing in common. Each person described the voice. Each person said they were chosen. But more importantly, each one mentioned someone else who led them there. A friend, a sibling, a parent, a journalist. Ellie's heart sank. "They passed it down," she whispered. Rachel nodded. "Willingly or not, they shared it. Like we did." They went back to the second house. Not because they had to, but because they needed to know what had been waiting for them all along. This time the door wasn't open. There was no well. No creaking floor. Just silence. Ellie walked through the rooms, brushing her fingers along the walls. She could almost feel the stories embedded there, not as screams or whispers but impressions. Like fingerprints on glass. She stopped at the far end of the hallway. There was a door she hadn't noticed before. It was plain. White. Closed. Rachel tried the handle. It turned easily. Inside was a single chair. And a recorder. Already playing. Ellie pressed pause. She looked at Rachel. Do we listen? Rachel didn't answer. Because she didn't have to. They sat down. Pressed play. The voice that came through wasn't Rachel's. And it wasn't Ellie's. It was Ellie's mother. Younger. Stronger. Set. I tried to keep it quiet. I really did. But it was so loud. And no one would believe me. So I wrote it down. I passed it to someone else. A therapist. A friend. I thought if I didn't speak it, it wouldn't be real. But I was wrong. The voice isn't evil. It's lonely. It isn't hunting. It's asking. And I think maybe the only way to stop it is to let everyone hear it. All at once. No more secrets. No more hosts. If my daughter ever finds this, I'm sorry. I hope she understands what I couldn't. The tape clicked off. Ellie sat frozen. The truth landed like a thunderclap in her chest. Her mother hadn't been broken. She'd been carrying the voice. And now Ellie was too. Rachel stood. We have a choice, she said. Ellie nodded. Burn it or broadcast it. They left the house for the last time. On the way back they didn't speak. There was nothing left to say. Only a decision to make. That night, Ellie sat in her office. She opened her laptop. Found the audio file from her mother. She hovered over the delete icon. Then over upload. She closed her eyes. And chose. A week later the file was public. It was titled, The Final Voice, with a description. This is where it began. And this is where it ends. It spread fast. News sites called it the most important audio file of the decade. Critics called it a hoax. Psychologists called it a mirror. But one thing was undeniable. People stopped whispering about the voice. They started talking. Openly. In classrooms. On podcasts. In therapy. It stopped being a monster. It became a story. A shared one. And just like that, the house lost its power. 6 months later, Ellie visited her mother's grave. She sat beside the headstone and spoke out loud. No tape recorder. No audience. Just her. You weren't crazy. You were brave. And you were right. The voice isn't gone. But it's no longer in charge. It belongs to everyone now. The wind picked up gently. Leaves rustled. No knock. No mirror cracking. Just the breeze. Back home, Ellie received a letter in the mail. No return address. No message inside. Just a photo. A young girl. Sitting on a swing. Smiling. Behind her, a house. Familiar. But different. Not haunted. Wash. Ellie turned the photo over. One sentence was scribbled on the back. Thank you for listening.